Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Clayton, and I am a senior manager at MMP working out of our Cambridge office. MMP is a leading national accounting, tax, and business consulting firm in Canada. We proudly serve and support the needs of our clients in the public, private, and non-for-profit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, we provide collaborative, cost-effective approach in doing business and personalized strategies to help organizations succeed across the country and around the world. This morning, I am pleased to welcome Ricard Camara, who is going to present the insights on how to transform relationships with clients and leading higher sales and profits. Ricardo has over 20 years of sales management and leadership experience in multiple industries. During his tenure as a sales manager in the financial industry, he has recognized as the top leader for his ability to motivate and achieve results. One of his strengths is the ability to develop strong and productive sales teams through his effective coaching and leadership style. In his current role as a leadership and relationship transformation coach, he helps business leaders capitalize and optimize relationships for better engagements and higher productivity. He coaches, consults, and conducts corporate training workshops and more effective ways to improve communication, collaboration, and trust within teams. How to achieve results through development in relationship excellence. Ricardo is a man of faith and is married to his high school sweetheart for 26 years. He is a father of 24-year-old son and a 23-year-old daughter. He believes the importance of finding a balance in his personal, professional, and spiritual life. His clients typically experience a personal and professional transformation through his coaching program that utilize unique relationship intelligence, methodology tools, and kingdom principles. As part of his calling and his purpose in life, Ricardo has discovered a deep collaboration between business success and fostering strong working relationships through the transformation work at his Rock Business Consulting Limited. Experience the freedom and the power to come with strength relationships through an authentic, transparent, inspiring leadership program where the impossible becomes possible. Please help me welcome Ricardo.
Thank you very much, Maria. I'm so sorry I made you. That was a long introduction. I apologize for that, but thank you very much for that. And thank you for the opportunity to be here with you. I'm just going to share my screen with you guys. And just bear with me for a minute. Oh, wrong one. Hey, can you see the main screen here?
Yes.
The blue one incites how to transform relationships with clients that leads to higher sales profits. You see that there, Maria?
Yes, I do.
Okay, perfect. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time. Thank you for giving, and I look forward to spending this time together with you. Looking forward to providing some key insights that hopefully will help transform the relationships with the clients and increase your profitabilities and sales. Today's agenda, we're going to look at developing a level of awareness and understanding to common barriers that often stand in the way of your sales process and relationships. We're going to uncover some key insights related to relationship intelligence, also known as RQ. And we're going to discuss and discover the 4 key concepts to the relationship awareness theory that can help transform your relationships, your sales performance, and communication effectiveness. And finally, we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. I think Maria covered all that I need to say about myself. Other than I'm a consultant and I work for On This Rock Business Consulting. And today's focus we're not going to focus on how to sell. We're not going to talk about which sales skills you need to develop. We're not going to talk about how to convert a lead into a sales strategy. The reason we're not going to do that today is because I'm assuming here that we know how to do our sales. We know how to we have developed those sales skills. But what we are going to focus on is how to increase our sales through strengthening relationships. We're going to also focus on how to communicate effectively in the right style. And then we're also going to focus on how to identify when we are overusing our strengths in our relationships, in our communication with others, in our sales presentation with as well. So first, let's start by looking at some of the common barriers that might be impacting your sales and your relationships with your clients. And there's some assumptions. The number one is there's assumptions made based on the behaviors or nonverbal cues, right? So that could become a barrier in our relationships. Difference of opinion, different perspectives. Some people may take offense to or feel their values are being threatened, and that could create a barrier in our ability to build strong relationships. Lack of self-awareness of our own internal motives, how others may perceive or experience you in communication, in your sales presentation, in your relationships. So that lack of self-awareness could easily and often is a barrier in our ability to build strong relationships. Moving too quick in the sales process. Not being able to identify which type of clients we're actually dealing with, and understanding, how to adjust your sales presentation accordingly. Misapplying strengths that can also trigger others to experience internal conflict. So how can we overcome these barriers? We'll be covering that in a little bit. But first, let's define the type of clients we're dealing with. First, we're dealing with internal clients. And your internal clients are individuals that work within the same organization. They could be different departments, teammates, leadership teams, your employees. These are considered our internal clients for the purpose of this webinar. It requires a level of collaboration between individuals and departments to deliver the service and products to actual external clients. And you must work with them. You don't really have a choice. You have to kind of learn to deal with them and work together to collaborate. So that's very important to understand that. And then we also need to understand that it could have a huge impact on our company ability to complete the sales or generate sales, the way we work internally, because it could also have an impact on our culture and working environment. And the reason I separate culture and working environment, I know that they're all almost the same, but the culture is that you could have an organization that has great culture, but you can have a team of individuals that may have a toxic working environment within that culture, within that organization. So not necessarily the entire organization is suffering, but there's some teams that within the organization that may have some communication issues. And of course, there's the external client. These are individuals who are not part of the same organization. They tend to be the ones that are buying that service and product from you. They have a choice whether to continue to work with you or not. And they have a direct impact as well on your sales because they could choose not to buy from you, but they also have an impact on your reputation. And in today's environment where we live in a social media environment, there's a lot of customer opinions and reviews being posted, right? And so if that relationship is not, if you fail to build a strong relationship with your clients and their experience in that sales process is not very good, it could lead to a reputational impact for your organization as well, and for you. So how can we strengthen internal and external relationships to improve the collaboration and your sales results? That's a kind of question that I would like to kind of ask you to hold that intention, because how can we do that, right? And we're going to look through how to do it through the development of the relationship intelligence. also known as RQ. You've probably heard emotional intelligence. This is relationship intelligence. And so we're going to define that in a minute for you. So what is relationship intelligence? Think of as a transforming insights into mastering the present interactions more effectively. Again, transforming insights into mastering the present interaction more effectively. So we have the past, our present, and the future. So how can we learn from our past experience by recasting the past, learning from those interactions, learning from our past experience with that client, with that type of individual, and that relationship, so that we can co-create a future together and setting new expectations. But in order to do that, we need to master the present. We need to master the moment. We need to master those interactions that we are having today. So building on the present, so that we can experience a co-created future. So the relationship intelligence provides and gives us the ability to dramatically improve your effectiveness by transforming your relationships without changing who you are at your core. And I think it's very important to understand that. We're not asking, or we're not going to talk about, here's what you need to become, be something else or somebody else. No, not at all. We want to be able to develop who you are, because we at the core, we have our core values that are very unique to you and me. Each of us are different. But based on our core values, how can we transform those relationships without changing core values? And that's the focus that we're going to be looking at today. So when I came across this theory, it's called the relationship awareness theory, it really actually transformed my life. It actually helped me understand leadership and communication and building stronger relationships more effectively. And it's a key to achieving communication effectiveness and strengthening relationships. I truly believe in that. It's led me to understand things differently, as I mentioned. And one of the things that it does, it focuses on, it talks about, in order to achieve meaningful dialogue, we need to develop a simple, common language for people to understand the true motives behind behaviors. And you're going to hear me talk a lot about behaviors and the motives. And what we want to do is understand the true motives, because it increases our ability to manage and prevent conflicts more effectively. So there are 4 key concepts to the relationship awareness theory that we're going to be covering today. And I'm just going to highlight them initially for you, and then we'll kind of dive in deeper to that. So the first concept is that our unconscious bias influence perception of ourselves and of others. How we see things, how we process things, how we are motivated, and which lens do we see things through. The second concept is that our behaviors are driven by our motives, a motivation to achieve self-worth. Strengths can be perceived as weakness when misapplied. And finally, the fourth concept is motivation changes in conflict. One of the things about the relationship awareness theory, it looks at our motives under 2 conditions. It looks at the first is when things are going well. What is our motivation? What's driving us to be what we do on a regular basis, how we respond to things and how we see things. And then in conflict, when we are triggered into conflict, it looks at that second condition when that happens, how we respond. What is the motivation change there? Okay. So how to achieve communication effectiveness and strengthen relationships with your clients? Well, first we need to start by developing a level of awareness, self-awareness. We need to know who we are, why are we motivated the way we are, why we tend to respond the way we respond, why we see things from a different perspective than other people. And once we develop that self-awareness, then we can develop a level of understanding, not only of ourselves, but also of others. And once you get to that level of understanding, then we can actually be able to accept and appreciate the differences in others without taking offense to their differences. And that allows us to build stronger relationships, be able to develop relationships where you can collaborate, whether it's internal clients or external clients. But specifically in internal clients, how can we collaborate more so, even though we see things from a different perspective? So developing that self-awareness is key to this process. So let's dive a little deeper into each of these concepts. And so the first concept is that our unconscious bias influence our perception of others and of ourselves. So here's, we're going to do a little bit of an exercise together, and it's called, what do you see, right? And so I believe that we all see the point here, and I'll just describe the picture that we're seeing. I think we would agree with this, that we're seeing a man sleeping, sitting on a lawn chair, and he's sleeping, and somebody is throwing the bucket of water on him, right? So I would like to ask you to post on the chat box, one of the things that we need to answer that we can't answer right now just by looking at this picture is why? Why is someone throwing a bucket of water on this sleeping man? I might need your help. I'm not sure if I can see the chat messages. Oh yeah, I can. So go ahead, and if you could please, add, what do you think the reason why someone is throwing a bucket of water on this individual? A prank? Yeah. He promised to mow the lawn. I totally agree with that, right? He was supposed to be doing chores and angry wife as a joke. Yeah, right? The reality, though, is that his hat was on fire, right? So here's an example where our unconscious bias, based on our past experience, fills in the missing components or the missing story, the gaps in the story that we didn't have. So we relied on our past experience, our training, our knowledge, maybe our past cultural experiences, whatever that is. So we call that our unconscious bias. Our cognitive mind fills in the missing pieces to the story. And when we do that, when we are not aware of how our unconscious bias fills in, right, we take there's a level of assumption. And that assumption leads us to make poor decisions. We may decide that, someone is intentionally saying something or doing something purposely to get you, or whatever it is that you may come up with that assumption, or you may not understand what's really happening. So we lean on our unconscious bias to reach a conclusion of what's really happening. But that often leads us to experiencing internal conflict ourselves, or we may actually cause internal conflict with others, which leads us to a broken relationship, a lost sale. And the reason why is, and if we refer back to that picture, is that, most of us never had experienced someone's hat on fire, so we got to throw the bucket in the water. So most thing is, yeah, angry wife, you fell asleep, was supposed to cut the lawn, didn't cut the lawn, right? So our unconscious bias is filling those gaps. So it's difficult to help us, or to help a client, when we're not able to properly understand their needs or communicate in their language, right? So if we're just assuming things and not able to understand who the client is, that could have a very detrimental impact on our ability to perform our sales job, but also build strong relationships with that client. Conventional sales training and leadership training, they often teach us, what to do and how to do it. And I've been part of amazing leadership training and sales training in my time that I worked at Citigroup. They had access to Harvard training courses that we took as employees, and it was great. But one of the things I didn't focus on was the why. And that leads us to our second concept. Behaviors are driven by our motives. The motives are reasons driving you and others to respond the way you do. The why. Once we are able to answer that why question, then we can work on the what's in the house. But if without the why, our unconscious bias may fill in the rest of the story, which often is not accurate. Why you and others perceive things differently. So I'm going to kind of go through this here quickly. So you may see yourself based on your motives, who you are, how you're wired, how you're motivated to do things. You know your motives, you know your intentions, you know the behaviors are based on why you're trying to do things. Others see you based on your behaviors, not the why you're doing it, but they react to the what you're doing. And sometimes those are not in line. And that leads us to experience a level of conflict. Maybe not necessarily an outburst conflict where you're arguing out loud, but internally you might be triggered into a conflict, or they may be triggered into conflict. And that there's a level of that breaks down that relationship, that trust, and that it becomes deteriorating. Because others cannot understand or don't know your true intentions and true motives based on the behaviors that they are seeing. We're going to dive a little deeper into this concept. We're going to use a buoy analogy that is provided by Core Strengths. And so what it does is, think of a buoy in the middle of the ocean. And this buoy is at the top of the ocean, at the top of the water, and it makes shift locations based on the conditions that it's in, right? So, let's say the storm comes in, a huge wave, and a boat drives by and creates this huge wave, which shifts the location of the buoy. And the buoy represents our strengths. And there's 28 strengths that we look at. Think of 28 different opportunities or chances that we can get it right, if you will. Our strengths are meant to be good, right? But may shift. We may, depending on different relationships and different conditions or situations, we may use different strengths at different times, and we have 28 different ones that we can use. But that buoy is anchored at the bottom of the ocean. And the anchor represents our motives, who we are, our core values, how we were wired, how God made us, right? That's who we are. And that really doesn't change. Who we are doesn't change. How we show up, how we react, how we respond, how we communicate can change. We can adjust that, right? Much like the buoy. So they are the reasons why you do what we do, is that anchor, the motives, what drives you to do the things you do. So we're going to look at the 3 primary motives, and this is based on the motivational value system. So we each have a very unique motivational value system. There's 7 in total, but we're going to look at the 3 primary motives that we fall in. And that helps us a little bit of understanding, create a level of understanding, hopefully, on the motives. So we have we call the MVSs, so motivational value system, for short, MVS. So we have a blue MVS person. These are people that are motivated by the welfare or the concern for others or people, wanting to help others. They are motivated to make sure others are well and doing well. Then we have the red motivational value system, which is individuals who have a higher level of concern for performance. They want to achieve results. They are those who are result driven. They're trying to achieve, they're trying to capitalize on opportunity. They're trying to push things forward because they're performance driven individuals. And then we have those who are green MVSs, which are more concerned about the process, establishing order, making sure the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. They need more time to process things. They need to make sure that all things are working well before we move on and make the decision. So they don't want to be pushed too far or too quickly. So the key, though, that we need to understand is this: we all have a blend of all three of them. We all care about people, performance, and process. We all do. But it's the level in which we care the most. What is the higher level? We could lean towards one or two more than the other. So that's kind of understanding our motives. So when we are talking in relationship with whether with our clients, internal or external clients, we need to be able to understand what motivation, what motives drive them. Are they more concerned about the welfare of others? Are they more concerned about performance and results and accomplishing things? Or are they more motivated by process, establishing? They need more details, right? And that will impact how we present to that client. Remember, in relationships, we cannot control how others behave or how they respond, but we can control how we respond, how you respond. You can respond in situations. How you respond in these situations really matter. You can be abrupt, dismissive, unproductive, creating this toxic relationship or environment, or we can be more patient, more engaging, more effective, more respectful, right? Respecting each other's differences, right? And working and collaborating together, creating this more productive environment or relationship. Ultimately, it's your choice. We choose. We have full control of how we're going to react and respond. And that leads us to the third concept. But before we do that, can you throw up that poll that we did? So if you could answer, which of these statements best describe you in terms of having difficult discussions with someone? And think about it from, someone that's demonstrating negative behaviors. Okay, I have fear of upsetting others, so I don't say or do anything about it. I am uncomfortable when people react negatively towards me or you, right? I am comfortable and I handle these situations effectively. So go ahead and select the one that's most appropriate to you. Okay, so 8%, 58, and 33. So 58% of attendees today feel uncomfortable about addressing these behaviors or having difficult discussions with people because they are afraid or they're uncomfortable how people are going to react to them. They feel like they're going to react negatively, right? So that leads to our number 3 concept, which is our strengths can be overdone. There we go. So think of our overdone strengths as this. Overdone strengths are behaviors intended as strengths, but are perceived negatively by others. They're seen as weaknesses by other people, right? But your intention, our motives, is to use these strengths for good. But how we use them, sometimes we may overuse them, these strengths, and it may be perceived very negatively, which leads us to maybe experiencing internal conflict, or others experience internal conflict with us. So there's 28, I mentioned that there was 28 different strengths. This is a picture of a portrait, a strengths portrait, and there's 28 different strengths. Our top 6 strengths are typically the ones we use. Our bottom strengths are the ones we seldom use or have opportunity to develop those, right? And this is different for everybody. These are the strengths, right? These are different strengths for everyone. It's the same strengths but different positions in the portrait. But those strengths also have 28 negative perceived behaviors. What is meant to be good could be perceived by others as negative, and we'll look at that a little bit deeper in a minute. So think of also your overdone strengths as this, as a sound system. Think of it as, you're at a party, everybody's gathering, music level is just perfect, there's collaboration and everybody's dancing, everybody's having a good time, and someone comes along and turns the volume up so loud that it distorts the music. It's so loud that it becomes offensive to some people. It's so loud that people start pulling away and disengaging from the party. Others get upset and become very vocal about their what's just happening, right? And others just go along with it. So you got your blue, your reds, your greens reacting differently to the same situation. And so is our strengths. How we overuse our strengths may impact others. Okay, so I'm gonna come back to this analogy as well. So the buoy analogy, buoys are our strengths. The anchor is our motives, what drives us to do what we do. And then the sound volume analogy is the overdone strengths, how we actually are using and how loud are they coming across to others. So we're going to look at a few strengths here. Intended strengths versus perceived behaviors. And I'd like you to consider, as I go through this, kind of think of a salesperson, right? Here's a salesperson with these strengths that have developed these strengths, right? And think of, would that be a good thing to have in a salesperson, right? So the first strength that we're going to look at is persuasive. Someone who's able to persuade, urge, influence, convince others that this is the value proposition that you're offering as an organization, as your products. This is good, right? And it helps, and is able to do a complete sales properly, right? Someone has developed this strength of helpfulness that goes above and beyond to make sure they're taking care of the clients and their clients' needs are being met and very helpful. Someone who is persevering, right? They don't give up. They continue developing the account, continue to work that account so that they can actually achieve a sales in the end. And finally, someone who has developed the ability to a sociable skill or strength that is able to engage and easily and develop relationships and have meaningful conversations with others, right? And right, these are good strengths. I would hire somebody with those strengths. But the challenge is when we overuse, when we turn up our volume on each of these strengths, others may perceive that strength or that person as being abrasive, disregarding other people's views, smothering, being too helpful, even when they're not being asked to help, but their need to help others, they're being too helpful that they actually comes across as being smothering. Being so persevering or so focused in accomplishing in conquering the challenges and persevering through it, that they come across as stubborn. They're not willing to look at other options or have a meaningful discussions. Maybe there is a different perspective that they could be considering that could make things easier, but yet they come across as stubborn for others. Or sociable, too sociable, that they come across as intrusive. And this would be more applicable for internal clients. Think of somebody within your organization that is very sociable. It's always chatting people up, right? And to certain people, that may come across as very intrusive, especially for a green motivational value person who is focused, likes order, likes structure, wants to complete their tasks in a timely fashion so they can get on with their day. And all of a sudden they have this individual that's coming in that's too intrusive for them. Again, strengths that are meant to be good and productive can be overdone, and we see it as negative behaviors. And that leads us to the fourth and final concept of the relationship awareness theory. Our motivation changes in conflict. And so much like your motivational value system, it's very unique to you and us, me and you, right? We all have our uniqueness. So is our conflict sequence. How we respond and the sequence in which we respond when we enter into conflict is very unique to each of us. And understanding that about ourselves, developing that self-awareness, also then helps us to recognize the differences in others when they go from things being good and they change to internal conflict. We can actually recognize those changes if we develop those skills. But because there is 3 different stages of conflict, we're not going to focus on the conflict sequence today because we don't have time to do that. There's 11 of them. But what we will look at is what happens in the different conflict stages. So our focus changes from when things are going well, we are concerned about the welfare of others, performance, and process. When we enter into conflict, we're no longer concerned about people, but we accommodate. Blue accommodates, red asserts, and green analyzes. So at stage 1 conflict, this is probably it is the best stage still to have a meaningful dialogue because we still have a level of concern for others, the problem, and self. So we can still have a level of discussion and be able to get past it if dealt with timely. But if the conflict is not resolved, it can lead to stage 2 conflict, where we no longer care about others, we're more concerned about the problem and ourselves. And at stage 3, we no longer care about others or the problem. It's more self-preservation. Think of a situation where either personal relationship or professional relationship at work, where maybe you were in a meeting and someone had an outburst in a meeting. They just out of nowhere, they got so angry, so upset, and everybody's looking at each other and saying, no, what the heck just happened? Why is this person's behaving in such a negative way? The reality or the probability is that they have been experiencing conflict for some time. The conflict was never resolved, and they were left at stage 2 or 3, probably stage 3. And depending on their conflict sequence, that's their stage 3 conflict. They're just asserting now. They're letting everybody know how upset they are. Your stage 3 conflict may be that you pull back, you analyze, right? You assess things, right? You disengage from the conversation. All these things are different for all of us. But understanding these different stages, we can then become more effective in managing conflict at stage 1, so that we don't let go to stage 2 or 3, where we have less opportunity to be successful in that. No, you can still work it back. Not saying you can't resolve conflict. Sure, you can, but it's more difficult because the other person or even yourself are no longer care about others or problem, just self-preservation. So being aware of the different stages is important as well. I don't think I have time to cover a story. I had a story about my time at Citi. Maybe at the end, if we have time, I'll cover it. If not, on some other day, I'll tell a story where I had to work through conflict and early on in my career. And so anyways, I'll just keep on moving on here. So one of the things that if you think of the stats for the poll that we just did, right? 8 of you said that they have fear of upsetting others, and so they don't say or do anything, right? Others, 58% said that they feel uncomfortable when people react negatively to what they're saying, right? So if you're trying to offer a difference of opinion or different suggestion, they may not speak up because they're afraid of how others will react to what you're saying. And so they stay quiet. But as an organization, as a team, as a sales team, especially, the ability to collaborate together and have different points of views is very important. But 58% of you may not even be able to share your voice, your opinions, your vision. And then 33% said they're comfortable handling difficult situations and difficult discussions, which is great, right? But we need to be very effective in how we do that, because we may be comfortable doing it, but are we enabling others to also express their points of view in that dialogue? And so we're going to look at the difference between opposition and conflict versus conflict. Opposition is this difference of opinion. It offers this disagreement. It offers this opportunity to have meaningful dialogue of different perspectives. Keep in mind our motivational value system. You might be looking at it from a blue perspective, a red perspective, or a green perspective. It's not right or wrong, it's just different. And so if we can stay and be engaged in opposition, which is very healthy actually, that's how we grow. That's how we innovate. That's why we co-create things together, by having different opposing views, so that we can shine lights on maybe blind spots that you or others may have. And then we can collaborate and create a new vision or new process. But it becomes conflict when we take it personal, or others take our comments, our views personal. And our fear that others will react negatively means that we ourselves might experience internal conflict, because we are not able to share how our visions, our ideas that we know most likely would be very helpful, but we're not going to say anything because we don't want to upset others, or we're afraid how they're going to react. And so opposition can be productive, but if it leads to conflict, it's very unproductive. It's time waster. There's a cost of conflict within organizations that happens every year, every day, where we spend a lot of time arguing and we walk away from meetings very upset, and we are now no longer focused on the work that we need to do, but we're dealing with our emotions because we've taken things personal, or we misunderstood. Our unconscious bias is filling in a story that perhaps we misunderstood that person, and because we haven't built that relationship to be able to trust and understand where they're coming from, we might experience conflict. The opportunity is that, in opposition, people go into conflict only about the things that are important to them when it becomes personal. But the opportunity in conflict is that we can learn what matters to people, and we can learn how we can change by using different strengths, right? By applying, maybe toning down that strength that we typically like to show up with, but maybe use a different strength that's more applicable, more effective, more productive. I came across this quote that was, I don't know who the author was, but when I read it, I'm like, wow, this is so great to what I do. And it talks about work hard not to offend others and work harder not to be offended. Like I believe that we all get up every day, right? We're motivated to do things. We are using our strengths for good. So we're not going out of our way to just offend others. I don't believe that's true of any of us. But often we take offense to what others do or say to us. And when we take offense, that impacts how we respond. Right? So work hard not to offend others and work harder not to be offended by trying to understand their perspective. Because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong. It's not right or wrong, it's a different perspective. And if we can appreciate it, if we can develop that level of awareness, understanding, and then appreciation, then that's good. So key takeaways for stronger relationships, to develop these stronger relationships, is asking qualifying questions to determine the true motives of others. Determine how your personal filters might be actually limiting your leadership, your sales process, or your communication with your clients. Do internal search. How my unconscious bias, how I see things might be actually impacting my relationships. Again, to remind, and I just repeated it, but to achieve communication effectiveness, it does require us to develop a greater level of awareness, understanding, acceptance, and appreciation for the different MVSs and the different perspectives. And once we develop the ability, once we have that level of awareness and understanding, we can then develop the ability to select better strengths. And that's key. And then recognizing when we are experiencing conflict allows us to manage these situations more effectively and timely. Guys, think about that conflict stage, the 3 stages. Stage 1, we all experience conflict. We all have misunderstandings. We all go through that, but that dealing with that timely is very important. I just had a meeting yesterday with someone, and he was expressing his frustration with one of his employees because this employee was expressing her frustration, and everything that was coming out of her mouth was based on self-preservation. So as he was telling me, I'm thinking stage 3 conflict, because she no longer cared about others or the problem. It was all self-preservation, right? So we need to recognize what's happening in others so that we can effectively respond using the right productive strengths, but timely. Don't set it off. Don't try to avoid it. Have those difficult discussions with those who are demonstrating based on the strengths, not the negative behaviors that you're seeing, but tie those negative behaviors to the applicable strengths that are meant to be good. Takeaways for sales. So how to increase sales? Spending extra time developing your clients' needs and discovering the language they need to speak. Understanding, developing a way to develop those questions so that you can actually understand, are they a blue language? Are they red language? Are they green? Right, MVSs, because that will impact how you how you adjust the pace of your sales process according to your client's MVSs. So, give you an example. If you're dealing with a red motivational value person, don't provide too much details. Summarize it. Get to the point, summarize it quickly. Allow them to ask for more information if they require more information, but don't dump it on them. They'll trigger them. They'll be disengaged from that sales call quickly. Conversely, if you're talking to a green motivational value person, and you're moving too fast on the sales, you come across to them as pushy. You're not giving them enough time to analyze the information that you provided. They need more time. They need to be. They need to assess the situation. They need to analyze everything before they're comfortable moving forward. Just a couple of examples. Focusing on strengths instead of behaviors will allow you to communicate and collaborate more effectively, and avoiding entering into conflict. You think of a client that, got on the phone with you and all of a sudden they got triggered, but it had nothing to do with you, because they got triggered because you're going through a similar process as the last guy who really didn't help them, and they're so frustrated. They're at stage 3 conflict, and it has nothing to do with you, but yet you're that salesperson on the phone, and how you respond to that client is going to make a difference. You can either respond abruptly, or you can have more compassion and try to be more understanding and try to walk them back to a place where you can have meaningful dialogue and move forward with the sales presentation. So as a reminder, relationship intelligence, I believe, is the key to strengthening any relationship, even personal relationships, actually, and increasing sales. It's that learning from our past, recasting the past experience so that we can co-create a new future and setting new expectations by mastering the present interactions. So I've come to the end of my presentation. I do have a document that if you're interested, you can email me. I'll give you the email address in a minute. You can email me. I'll provide you this document as a PDF. It's how to listen to different types of people. And as you can see, it has the different colors, the different motivational value systems, the main 3, and then the blend of the 3. And it actually goes down for each individual motivational value system. It highlights, what you should be doing. What, for a red, don't recast, don't go back and recast the past. If a decision was made, move forward. Don't go back and rehash it. For green, it talks about, don't move too quick. All right, all these things. But anyways, it has a very, very detailed information that might be helpful. And if you do want it, just send me a quick email to ricardo@otrconsulting.ca, and I'll be more than happy to email you the attachment. So thank you very much. I hope this was valuable. I hope that insightful, and I look forward to having a Q&A now and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. That was a fantastic presentation. If anybody does have any questions, please feel free to use the chat, or you could also virtually raise your hand if you wanted to ask the question out loud, and I can unmute you manually.
Yeah, Nashina, I see that you want to send that PDF. If you could actually send me an email, that way, because I won't have a copy of if everyone puts their email on the chat, I won't be able to have that. So it's probably best if you just send me a quick email and I'll fire back that document to you. That'll be best that way. Any other questions? I don't see if.
I don't see any coming in, but yes, thank you so much, Ricardo. I'm going to also do this. Just as a friendly reminder, this session was recorded, so it is available if you want to refer back to it anytime on the Chamber's YouTube channel. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.